Fortnite Chapter 6 Season 4 is one of the most confusing and controversial seasons in Fortnite history. It felt like every day something weird would happen out of the blue. New Unvaults, a weekend event, removing all the bugs. You could miss a week of Fortnite and it would feel like an entirely different game. But this has also been one of the most fun seasons we've ever had. Tons of wacky items, the removal of Fortnite's medallion systems, and the flippin' Megazord. So now that this season has come to an end, and let's be honest, I have nothing better to do while waiting for the Simpsons season, let's go back through the entirety of Shock and Awesome, and let's go through everything. Every weapon, every update, every weird hour-long Power Hour event where the only weapon is the Blade Blaster, but only kind of, because they still had normal weapons, but they also had the Blade Blaster. It's confusing. But let's reflect, and let's see how fun this season was. Also, I'll brush up on other modes, but don't expect me to talk about them a lot. This is a Battle Royale video. You're not here for Reload's Legendary Royale update. But with that taken care of, let's get to this, because this season has a lot, and I mean a lot, to talk about. Wait, is that Scooby-Doo? After the Super Showdown event, this tentacle was left on the island, which then caused big holes to spawn, which then led to bugs from the spirit realm called Omnimorphs taking over the island, which then led to a group called the OXR, or the Omnimorph Extermination Rangers, to come to the island. Look, I'm not gonna act like a Fortnite lore professional, you can go to Cyan for that. Or I guess you can't go to Cyan for that. But these are the basic details of how we got from the funny superhero season to Helldivers. Yeah, this season is just Helldivers. Fortnite Shock and Awesome released on August 7th, and it brought a lot to the game. Now, since I don't want to go over this mess all in one jumbled up section, we're going to be breaking this up into updates. So starting off, we have the season's launch. Now, with the bugs taking over the island, we have this new blue biome. Don't ask me how the two things are related, they just are. And in this new blue biome, we have 4 new locations, starting off with the OXR HQ. And this is the only one of the new locations that actually feels like a Fortnite location. But more on that later, because this location is great. This location serves as a headquarters for, well, the OXR. Tons of loot is spread out across these buildings with an area to practice your bug fighting skills outside. Or you can just ditch the looting and buy the loot if that's your kind of thing. And overall, this is easily the best new location here. Despite not even having a queen, you'll still find yourself dropping here a lot. Swarmy Stash replaces Brutal Boxcars, and it is here, I guess. I mean, nobody actively drops here unless if it's your first game of the season, or you're being held at gunpoint. This place has like 3 chests. More people recognize Swarmy Stash for the lake outside than for the location itself. Ranger's Ruin replaces Crime City, which replaced Warrior's Watch, which gave me depression. But Ranger's Ruin is actually a really good location. Tons of loot packed together on the outside of the location, but in the middle there's an open area to fight the Bug Queen. The only problem is that Bug Queen dropped a sweeper shotgun, so nobody dropped here for most of the season. And then we have the Hive, the main location for Shock and Awesome. I said, and then we have the Hive, the main location for Shock and Awesome. Where's the location? Wait, what do you mean this is the location? This location is literally nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean Chris Griffin, Family Guy, there's nothing. This doesn't even feel like a Fortnite location. This feels like a glorified spawn location for the Bug Queen. Like, where do I land here? There's nothing. And hey, I'm sure this problem gets better since Demon's Domain got renamed to Demon's Debris. I can't wait to see the new Demon's Domain.
There's nothing.
Thank you, Shen.
Demon's Debris is literally just Demon's Domain, but without the cool temple in the middle. So without Demon's Domain. This is a big problem for a Fortnite season. Since the locations need a queen to spawn, they need to be open. But the problem is, you could have actually put some location there as well. The only location I think does this well is Ranger's Ruin, which designs the location around the queen. And later on, you'll see this issue expanded on. So many locations on this map are just empty because there's nothing. And I mean, it's not like there's not cool things they could have done with a Bug War theme. Like, we have OXR themed locations and OXR outposts. Why are the actual main locations so empty? And this contributes to this map just feeling like a huge mess. You've got the Outlaw biome, you've got the Star Wars locations, and none of these feel like Fortnite locations, leading to almost none of these locations feeling like good drop spots. Most of the time you'll find yourself dropping at a place like Canyon Crossing, because that's one of the only good locations left on this map. But it's not like any of this matters anyway, because you're gonna drop at a bug location to get the mythics. Which brings me to the loot pool. Most of Season 3's loot pool is carried over to Season 4, but with a few changes. As for our assault rifles, we have the Fury, the Hammer AR returning from Chapter 3, and the new OXR rifle. And am I insane for saying these guns are almost the same? Like, the Fury is the slightly fast one, the OXR is the slightly slow one, and the Hammer is somewhere in the middle. But the difference is barely noticeable. Last season we had the Fury and the Spire, which were two weapons that were exact opposites, which meant I was taking the Fury because I hate the Spire rifle with a burning passion. But now I just feel like I'm taking whichever weapon's the highest rarity. None of these assault rifles stand out, and it's hard to get a favorite. This one just feels like the slightly faster one, and then you have the other two in case if you can't find the slightly faster one. If you held me at gunpoint and forced me to pick, I would probably go with the Hammer AR since it's really good in reload. But I can use any of these guns and play the exact same way and get the same effect. But then the shotguns have the opposite problem. There is only one good shotgun, and it's not even close. The Sentinel Pump and Testicle Shotgun returned from Season 3, while we have two new shotguns. The Sweeper Shotgun exists, and there's everything you need to know about the Sweeper Shotgun, but none of this section about the shotguns matter because we have the Wrecker Revolver. This thing has insane damage at close range, and then by aiming down sights, you get insane damage at long range. This thing is an insane shotgun, and an assault rifle, and you can double pump. This thing ruined the shotgun meta on launch, because there was no competition for shotguns, you just took the Wrecker Revolver. Literally any shotgun fight this season is just Coughing Baby versus Hydrogen Bomb Simulator. But the same can't be said for the SMGs. Here we have the Veiled Precision SMG returning from Season 3, and the Stinger SMG replacing the Surgefire SMG. I really like seeing the Veiled Precision as the only red dot in the meta, mainly because this is just an alright SMG, enhanced by being the only scoped weapon in the loot pool. And as for the Stinger SMG, it's definitely an improvement over the Surgefire SMG. The Stinger SMG is a really good counter to melee items. And while we don't have any melee items yet, you'll see a lot more later on in the video. So it's always good to have a weapon that can serve as a kind of counter to that. And now we have some miscellaneous weapons that I can't really fit into any category. Firstly, we have items returning from Season 3, starting off with the Deadeye DMR. And I think I may be the only person who likes the Deadeye DMR. The DMR isn't very strong on its own, let's be honest here, a DMR can never compete with a sniper, but in the right hands, this gun is deadly. As well, the Hyper Burst pistol returns from Season 3. This is a 3-round burst pistol with an insane fire rate and accuracy, hence the name, Hyper Burst Pistol. I swear, this weapon is extremely slept on, especially after the buff it got, which hasn't happened yet, but ignore that. But if you haven't already, please use the Hyper Burst SMG. It is pretty good. Give it another chance. Oh wait, it might be a little bit too late for that. But then we have some new weapons to talk about, starting off with the Lead Spitter 3000. Is it an SMG? Is it an assault rifle? Who knows, but for this video, it's a Lead Spitter 3000. And it doesn't really matter anyway, because this thing sucks. The recoil on this thing is insane, and sure, if you can manage it, you can deal some good damage. But come on, close range, just use the Wrecker Revolver. Long range, just use the Wrecker Revolver. I'm sure this thing is better in builds, but I'm a zero build player. This is a zero build player's review. The Lead Spitter 3000 is useless. But I cannot say the same about the Swarm Strike. The Swarm Strike is meant to be a reworked version of the guided missile, in which it does a pretty good job at being one. But instead, people use this item like a shotgun, and not like a funny toe hook shotgun, like a spam it in your face and insta-kill shotgun. Or if you could pair this with one of the medallions from this season, you could double jump around while shooting people with missiles. And this got really annoying, because at launch, if you hit all the bullets, you could one-shot and zero build. And before, this was an achievement only taken by headshotting with the Mythic Havoc Pump Shotgun. But the Swarm Strike has joined that club, and this does not take any skill at all to use. I'm adding this in now. I completely forgot to talk about the Bug Blaster, and actually I really like the Bug Blaster. It works kind of like an explosive with 35 uses. By using it, you get a pretty small explosion radius that does 45 damage, but by charging it up, you get a really big explosion radius that does 90 damage. This thing is also great for pressuring players who are behind cover because of its really big blast radius. So yeah, I like the Bug Blaster. We're not stopping at weapons because we also have a few items returning this season. Legendary Slurp Juice, the Flare Gun, Med Mist, and Crash Pad Jr.'s returned. Anyways, Flowberry Fizz is back, and I will always be convinced this is one of the best healing items of all time. You get 100 uses and can heal for 5 shield at a time. But you also get a low gravity effect, meaning you can use this as mobility, but you lose out on gaining shield later. There's actual strategy with managing when you use this item, unlike the Shockwave Launcher, because I hate this thing. The Shockwave Launcher returned this season, and instead of being mythic, it is now found in epic and legendary, meaning pretty much everybody has this thing. The Shockwave Launcher will turn your rocket ammo into the amount of shockwaves you have, meaning you can have up to 18 shockwave grenades. And it's not even hard to get rocket ammo. You can completely fill up your rocket ammo just by killing a player. So most likely you'll just be right back up at 18 again. Meaning there is no risk whatsoever to just shockwaving away from any fight. Fights at the launch of the season felt so boring, because anytime you get a player low, they just shockwave away. And if you don't have a shockwave launcher, then they just get away for free. Womp womp. And if you do have a shockwave launcher, the fight just becomes a matter of chasing a guy with almost infinite shockwave grenades, until they eventually find a car and just get away. This item takes pretty much no skill to use, and I hate it. But there are some items I didn't talk about, and that's because they're tied to the OXR rank system. Hero ranks carry over from Season 3, but now as OXR ranks. Except now instead of giving you Siphon and better boons, they drop a drop pod once you rank up. Each one will give you a boon that increases your stamina, and a gun that keeps getting higher rarity until you reach S+, where it gives you god loot. You can get either the Enhanced Havoc Pump Shotgun, which if you remember earlier is the only shotgun that can 1 pump in 0 build, the Enhanced Assault Rifle, which I never got to use, or the Overclocked Pulse Rifle. Now you would think I would hate this because these are objectively some of the best weapons in the game. I mean, Tyler Fries, please tell me I pronounced that correctly, put these weapons as the 4th and 2nd best weapons in Fortnite history. So that has to mean something. But the point is that these weapons are broken. But at the same time, them being broken makes it a great reward for getting S+. Because getting S+ this season is insane. You have to do so much. You have to kill the Bug Queen, sometimes even 2, get 20 kills, write a letter to Tim Sweetie about why he should bring back augments, and pray to Donald Mustard that you hit S+. And then you get to use the weapon to kill the 2 bots left and then game's over. Even though you barely get to use it, I love seeing weapons like this reward aggressive playstyle. Like yeah, players can run away in cars, but then they're not going to get the overclocked pulse rifle now, will they? Now while endgame rank is handled well, early game is handled quite differently, because going for a Bug Queen will get you a ton of rank. Pretty much it'll get you to rank A at the start of the game. And alongside the Medallion, Mythic, and Legendary Slurp Juices, it puts players who go for the Bug Queens at a huge advantage rank-wise over players who don't, which makes it pretty much impossible to get that beloved overclocked pulse rifle I mentioned earlier without going for a Bug Queen. And it also means that players who go for a Bug Queen get first dib on the exotics. Exotics jump scare. Once you get A rank, you can go into loot bunkers. There are 4 of these things around the map, but only 2 will open. So there is an element of luck that you get a bunker near you, or you might have to drive in a car for 5 seconds to get to the other one. But regardless, going into these bunkers will get you a ton of points towards your OXR rank and one of 4 exotics. Firstly is the Eradicator OXR rifle, and I love this thing. Every shot you hit with this gun will add 5 damage to the rest of your shots in the magazine, with it capping at 50 damage. I really like this exotic because it rewards skillful play and good aim. You don't want to waste your bullets because then you go back to 30 damage, and it feels insanely satisfying to rack up hits with this thing and start doing 50 damage on people. I like this exotic. And then next up we have the Marksman Wrecker Revolver. But the thing is, I'm still confused about what this gun does differently than a standard Wrecker Revolver. By checking the Fortnite wiki, wiki, this gun gives a higher headshot multiplier and faster fire rate while hip firing. At least that's what the wiki said, because I barely noticed a difference. But hey, it's still a solid exotic because it's the Wrecker Revolver at the end of the day. Then we have the Double Trouble. Now in concept, this exotic is amazing. You get 2 gold pumps that you can double pump between, and you get Siphon on hitting players. But the problem is that you can already double pump this season using the revolvers. And even when Epic fixed that, for starters, we were already halfway through this exotic's lifespan. And secondly, you could still use the revolver with any other shotgun, which made the exotic ability pretty much useless. Not to mention there was already a medallion that gave you Siphon this season, which pretty much just made this thing getting 2 gold pumps. Which now that you mention it, getting 2 gold pumps isn't that bad actually. Finally, we have Slapberry Fizz, which is Flowberry Fizz that heals you for both health and shield with 300 uses instead of 100. Oh yeah, also it gives you the slap effect, hence the name Exotic Slapberry Fizz. Wait, why is this one the only one that has exotic in the name? Like, all of these weapons are exotic. Why is this one the exotic Slapberry Fizz? Yeah, I just sat for like a minute not even knowing what to say for this one. I think that says a lot. Overall, these exotics and the rank system were handled pretty well. Although I do wish that defeating the Bug Queens either gave you less points or it was easier to gain points to reach A rank. Because defeating the Bug Queens gets you exotic access before anyone else in the lobby, alongside all the cool stuff you get. Bug jump skin. This is a bug season. Of course there needs to be bugs everywhere, just like Helldivers. And these bugs, just like Fortnite's many other attempts at wildlife, except for sprites. They're cool. Wait a minute, the bugs killed the sprites. This is just giving me another reason to hate bugs. But trust me, you haven't felt true pain until you try reviving a teammate in a bug location with like 15 bugs swarming you. And they're not dealing a lot of damage, but they're still dealing enough damage to the point of them being a threat. So then you gotta stop reviving your teammate and then shoot the bugs and then go back to reviving your teammates, and it's just not fun. Not to mention all the third parties that happen with the bugs. Don't even get me started on that. Also, along with that, we have 3 OXR outposts, located near Supernova Academy, Canyon Crossing, and Outpost Enclave? Outpost Enclave, and these locations would be swarmed with bugs, and by clearing them out, you get some pretty solid loot, and a boon that shows you where the next zone is. I forgot to talk about boons, didn't I? Alongside the Super Soldier boons you get for hitting each rank, there are 3 other boons. The first one I already discussed, which shows you the next zone for clearing out the outpost. And the other 2 can just be found randomly in chests. First is the Agile Aiming boon, which pretty much does nothing. It says that it makes you move slightly faster while aiming down, but I barely noticed a difference. Heck, I even forgot to record footage of this boon, just because whenever I had it, I completely forgot that I had it. And alongside that, we have a boon that's extremely useful, the Extended Magazine boon, which is pretty much just the same effect of getting an extended magazine during Chapter 5, which I like. Now these boons are solid, but my question is, why didn't they do anything cool with this? Like, it's literally just you get the random chance of finding these in a chest. That is really lame. I don't really like that. It just makes the boon's whole inclusion this season just feel weird. But moving back to the bugs, we have 3 bug queens located at the Hive, Ranger's Ruin, and Demon's Debris. You spawn the queens by defeating enough bugs to fill up this little meter. Then the queen spawns, and by defeating it, you get a mythic weapon, a slurp juice per member in your party, and a medallion. And if you paid attention while I was talking about locations, you would know that the mythics and medallions are tied to which queen you killed. The Hive will drop a mythic revolver and the Surge medallion, Demon's Debris will drop a mythic OXR rifle and the Spring-like medallion, and Ranger's Ruin, well, we don't need to talk about Ranger's Ruin now, do we? The Surge medallion makes you run faster and gives you a boost while sliding, while the Spring-like medallion lets you double jump. And then there's the Carapace medallion, but we don't talk about that one. And these medallions, except for the Carapace medallion, are incredibly, and I mean incredibly, overpowered. These medallions are incredibly fun to use, but once you go up against a player who's also having that fun with a medallion and knows how to use it, well, the fight was just Hydrogen Bomb versus Coughing Baby Simulator 2.0. The problem with these medallions are that they can directly benefit you in a fight. It's not like shield regen or your gun reloading faster. Using these medallions gives you a gameplay advantage that no other player has. This is the same problem the Cerberus medallion had back in Chapter 5. While you could get the skull dashes, or whatever these things are called, I still have no clue, from the underworld biome, most of the time you weren't gonna be in the underworld biome. meaning you wouldn't have skull dashes, which meant the only player who had skull dashes was the player with the medallion, and they had unlimited dashes. The same thing applies with this season and their medallions. If we had a bug splash or bug wing item that gave the same effects of these medallions, that would be more manageable. But without these items, the medallion players have a huge advantage over other players. And you may say that comes with the risk of having your location exposed on the map. But firstly, I swear it's impossible to see this location. Like, I swear, is it just me or is this ring like really hard to see? And secondly, this ring served as a warning for players. A warning to stay away from the person with the medallion. It was not a, hey, come kill this guy as a medallion. No, it was stay away. This person has the double jump medallion. Run. Keep your distance. Back out of the game now. Quick note, since I forgot to include it in the video, and I know someone in the comments is gonna be, actually, you forgot about these features from Chapter 6, Season 4. Capture flags and hot drops returned this season. It's nice to have these features back. I do love them. They encourage dropping at locations that aren't bug locations. I've just got to question why they didn't come back, like, at any other time during this chapter other than the last season. I don't know, it's just pretty weird. Also, we still have to talk about the battle pass, which I forgot about. Yeah, none of these skins really stand out as great skins, but they're solid. I really like Agent Patch, and the White Ranger is a really cool tier 100. But while this pass is gone, if you're considering buying the next pass or anything else in the item shop interests you, then please consider using code PURPLE with 2 R's when making purchases in the item shop. And that concludes the launch of Chapter 6 Season 4. I know I'm bound to forget something, so please forgive me and don't be a nerd in the comments. I tried my best to include everything, but I'm bound to miss something, of course. And overall, this season's launch was pretty mixed. I won't deny the fun I had running around with the medallions and swarm strikes, but I also got really tired of landing at the Hive and Demon's Debris every game, dealing with the bugs, or anyone else that had a medallion. The swarm strike and the revolver double pump also got annoying, and not to mention the shockwave launcher making every fight just somebody running away. But thankfully, my cries would soon be answered on August 11th, when Fortnite made their first hotfix. The lead spitter got its recoil buffed, and the medallion, swarm strike, and the wrecker revolver all got nerfed. And along with that, they removed double pumping with the revolvers. Also, they made ranking up easier and nerfed the spawn rate of shockwaves, but let's be honest, who cares? And while we're talking about hotfixes, let's go ahead and include the second hotfix we got on August 22nd. Doesn't really matter anyway, because we didn't get much this hotfix. We got some boring ammo, ranks, lead spitter got buffed again, the medallions and shockwave launcher were removed, you know, the normal stuff. The medallions and shockwaves removed! Originally, I thought they were just gonna rebalance the medallions and add them back later, but no, that's just the end of medallions this season. And I cannot be happier. This one update doubled my enjoyment this season. I don't have to deal with double pumping, the swarm strike, one-shotting, and zero build. Players can't run away for 5 minutes straight with shockwave launchers, and I'm no longer forced to drop at one of the worst locations on this map. Look, I get this change ruined the fun for a lot of people this season. I get that. But this is my review of the season, and I had the biggest smile on my face after killing someone without them using a billion shockwaves to run away or double jumping around like a bug. You had to drop Demon's Debris or the Hive to fight off the bugs to get the medallion, or else other players would have access to game mechanics that no one else could have. As I said before, the way medallions were handled this season is flawed, and incredibly unfair when people have abilities that no one else can have. I do hope later on we see double jump added again, but not as an insanely broken medallion only one person can have. These hotfixes got rid of all of the mess we had to deal with this season. And it wasn't like fun's over, there's no more wackiness, because there are still wacky items, and they are still very strong. This hotfix didn't ruin the fun of the season, it just made the season a lot less of whatever this is. And if you still want to say that this hotfix ruined all the fun of this season, right after that, we would get a lot more wacky items in version 37.10. On August 16th, we got the version 37.10 update, and it added a lot. Starting off, we got a new location. Well, new in quotation marks, because pretty much they just gave the Demon's Debris treatment to Utopia City. Like, quite literally, if you take Utopia City and then just remove half of it, boom, Dystopia City, new location. Utopia City already had a huge looting problem, and was a complete downgrade from Seaport City. I swear, I have gone into buildings in Utopia City with like 2 chests in them. Is the loot just playing hide and seek with me or something? Because I swear I can never find it. And now we have half the location just being a boss arena for the Bug Queen. And they didn't even add anything cool here, they just removed half of Utopia City. And for some reason, instead of making a new queen for this location, they just made it so the one at Demon's Debris can spawn here, which is just lame. Like, you seriously couldn't have made the queen here drop a mythic Hyper Burst, Deadeye DMR, or Stinger SMG? That at least would have been something. But let's move on from Dystopia City, because I have already covered the emptiness of this map enough, and there's still a lot to talk about this update. Like our 2 new vehicles. Starting off, we have the Hammerhead Chopper, found at OXR bases, and this is pretty much just the chopper from Chapter 2, but better. When you leave the driver's seat, the chopper will stay in the air for a little bit, allowing you to shoot down on players while still in the chopper. Along with that, you skydive now when exiting the chopper, which are big improvements that makes it quite a bit better than the normal chopper. And then we have the roly-polies. My precious, my beloved, I love them. They are so silly. I love how each of them have their own names. I love them. I love them so much. Oh yeah, I guess I should probably talk about the gameplay of them. Basically, imagine if airbending from Chapter 5 and the inflatable had a child, and then you get these little goobers. Now, since this item works like airbending, which works like the surf cube, you think I would have a problem with people just using these to run away like cowards. But no, because Fortnite actually learned they should give a risk to running away from a fight. And now you can actually shoot people out of these, making people incredibly vulnerable while using roly-polies, meaning there's an actual risk to using this item. And after the mess of shockwave launchers I had to deal with, I am surprised Epic actually learned how to make a balanced mobility item. And now with this update, we have 4 new items. Firstly, we have 3 new exotics. Starting off, we have the Shadow Precision SMG, which is just the Precision SMG from before, and the Shadow Tracker had a child. Okay, I should probably stop with the child analogies. Now, despite this being the worst exotic, I would still pick it up because it's a decent weapon. Next, we have the Shock and Slow Shockwave Launcher, which I never got to use. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty scared when I heard they were making an exotic version of the Shockwave Launcher. But this thing pretty much works nothing like a Shockwave Launcher. You're not supposed to use this weapon on yourself, you're supposed to use it on other players, because it'll freeze players in the air for a few seconds, which pretty much makes them a free kill. And yeah, no wonder this thing was removed in a week. This is insane! But the question is it more insane than our last exotic? The the Eradicator Hop Rock Fury Assault Rifle. Yeah, I like Gay Furry Assault Rifle, it rolls more off the tongue. But this exotic pretty much just gives you fly hacks. Yeah, this exotic just gives you fly hacks. Like, look at this footage, this is fly hacks. Surprisingly, they still found a way to make this balanced, but yeah, this weapon is still good. And all 3 of these new exotics, except for you, are really fun and great additions to the exotic pool. Yeah, so they just decided to completely nuke the old exotics. Now with the new exotics, they removed the exotic OXR rifle and Double Trouble. And you might think this is just gonna be like Lawless, where they were in for a few weeks and then we get the old ones back. But no, this is the last time we saw those exotics. And this is a shame because those exotics were admittedly really fun. Especially since Double Trouble would have actually gotten a chance to shine now that the Wrecker Revolver double pump is gone. But I guess we'll never know because Epic just decided to nuke this item. But moving on from the exotics, we have the final new item, the Precision Airstrike, or as I like to call it, a tactical nuke. Yeah, this thing is just a nuke. Now, while this weapon looks like it should be overpowered, it's really not, because when you use a tactical nuke, players will get 5 seconds to leave the radius, or else they get nuked, requiring players to act quickly, and usually they'll make it out of the blast radius with no harm. But if you catch a player off guard, which requires a lot of skillful thinking because you only get 1 airstrike, yeah, there's no chance they survive, they're just dead. Like, no chance of survival, they are just dead. Jump scare! In the process of writing this video, I completely forgot about the Rift Pod replacing Loot Island. Thanks to the Big Craig's Season 4 video for reminding me about that, but since the airstrike also drops out of the Rift Pod, I thought I'd just leave this section here. The Rift Pod replaces Loot Island, and this is so much better. The way Loot Island was handled in Chapter 6 was annoying. The bosses just took so long and were so annoying to kill. Not to mention the way the island was designed, it's so easy for players to just third party you, and leave if they fail. And the reward you get for all this effort is a mythic weapon and a medallion, which doesn't sound that bad until you realize for half the chapter it was the super shield medallion. Comparing this to the way the island works in chapter 4 and 5, where the island isn't a huge pain to go for, and doesn't work in a way that highly encourages third partying, and gives much better loot with tons of gold and purple weapons for you and your team to use, including getting a mythic weapon, such as the enhanced drum shotgun or overclocked pulse rifle. Now all my complaints have been fixed, because the Rift Pod doesn't feel like an Elden Ring boss to obtain, and it gives just as good loot as the chapter 4 and 5 islands. Slurp juices, a precision airstrike, legendary weapons, and a mythic lead spitter 3000, which doesn't make the Rift Pod feel like a huge headache. Anyway, back to me from a few weeks ago. And that's everything added at the launch of version 37.10. But we're not done with this version yet, because we still had a lot happen before 37.20 released that we have to go over. Fortnite Festival got a new season with Gorillaz as the headliner. Now, I'm not gonna act like a big Gorillaz fan, but I listened to some of their music and it's pretty solid. And I'm glad to see another band like Metallica in Festival. Why are there only 2 skins in the pass? So unlike Metallica, only half of the band members are in the pass, while 2D and Noodle are in the shop. And it's not like making new skins for Gorillaz is hard. They're animated, meaning it should be a lot easier to make new skins for Gorillaz. And now the festival pass is longer and takes more levels to complete than Metallica's pass. So the only reason I can think of for Epic not adding the full band in the pass is classic laziness. But hey, that's just a theory. On September 2nd, we got 2 items returning to Battle Royale, the hand cannon and the Falcon Eye Sniper. The hand cannon is so much worse than it was back in chapter 1. It will never be as good as my beloved Monarch pistol. This thing requires insane accuracy, and I never feel like I'm getting enough damage to warrant taking this over an assault rifle. Not to mention the fact that it just takes so long to get back to first shot accuracy. And as for the Falcon Eye Sniper, I bet a lot of you didn't even know the Falcon Eye Sniper existed before it was added this season, and some of you still don't know it exists. But the main reason for that is because it was added during Lawless, and it had the effect of being a sniper in the same loot pool as the Mammoth pistol. And yeah, the reason why the sniper is forgotten is largely due to the fact that it's in the same meta as the Mammoth pistol, but it's also because the sniper is just okay. It works like that one sniper from chapter 3, where you get 3 shots that do alright damage. I wouldn't recommend taking this thing in blue or purple, but if you can get a gold Falcon Eye, you can hit some pretty nasty shots with it. Although let's be honest here, Epic should have added back the heavy sniper. They did it in chapter 4, they can do it here. But if I had a nickel for every time we had a strange wave of unvaults on September 2nd, 2025, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, because randomly at like 10 p.m. we got an update, and since we've been clearing out the bugs, we got a few loot pool changes. Firstly, the bugs got nerfed. And yeah, these things are just pathetic now. They could already die in 1 shot, but now they only do 1 damage. These things already weren't much of a threat, but now they're just so much of a nuisance. They're not even a threat anymore. They're just annoying. But on to the actual loot pool changes, because now the Hammer AR and Shock and Slow Shockwave Launcher are gone. And I never got to use the Shock and Slow Shockwave Launcher, because just like all the other exotics that got removed, it never came back. Also, as for the Hammer AR, I was using it as my main AR, but now I just switched back to the Fury. Again, these assault rifles are not very different, so I do not care. But in this item's place, we got the return of the Shockwave Hammer. I just wanted to point out how the 2 weapons vaulted were the Shockwave Launcher and the Hammer Assault Rifle. I see what you did there, Epic. You're not slick. And instead of the annoying Shockwave Launcher, this item only has 3 uses that recharge over time. And thankfully, unlike the Rocket Ram or Kinetic Blade or Witch Broom and eventually the Chainsaw, but we haven't gotten there yet, they didn't ruin this item by giving it durability. And oh my goodness, this item just feels so much better than the Shockwave Launcher. And it's not even close. While this item still isn't perfect, it is a lot better than the Shockwave Launcher, so I'm happy. Also, if you bonk somebody with a Shockwave Hammer, it is so satisfying. And we're still not done with random unvaults, because on September 5th, we would get the Weekends of Champion event. This event unvaulted 4 weapons for the weekend to promote FNCS. and I'm gonna pretend like I care about FNCS. Firstly, the Hollow Twister returned, and I'm not gonna lie, after 2 seasons without red dot assault rifles, it felt nice to finally use one again. I'll get onto my thoughts on red dots in the meta later, because if you know, you know, but for now, just know that this change felt really refreshing to use. Then we had the gold pump returning, and like, okay, I guess. I don't understand why they just brought back the gold one. Like, why not bring back the standard or purple pump? It's just weird. And while back in the day, the gold pump was an elite weapon that you had to take, now it's not really that much better than just having a Sentinel pump or a Wrecker revolver. In fact, the Sentinel pump and Wrecker revolver might actually be better than a gold pump. Also, I think the exotic Hollow Twister and Double Trouble could be found in bunkers, but I never found it, so don't quote me on that. The Grapple Glove was also added, and I love this thing. The Grapple Glove is just a budget version of the Spider-Man Mythics, but a budget version of the Spider-Man Mythics at the end of the day is still the Spider-Man Mythics. So let me have my fun swinging around the island, because we're probably never getting the real Spider-Man items back. Also, real quick, fun fact, this is the 3rd season in a row where the Grapple Glove returned. I don't know, I just thought that was a neat little fact. And finally, we have the Boom Bow, which is the first time this item has returned since Season 8 back in 2019. This isn't the Kaboom Bow from Chapter 2. No, this is the actual Boom Bow. And if you use this thing, you would know why it was vaulted. The Boom Bow is incredibly satisfying to use. Like, if you have never used a Boom Bow, I feel so... Oh, and the event's over. All the items are gone. And that wraps up everything added in version 37.10. This update kept up the steam of the season and started to pick up for the abysmal launch of this season. But on September 10th, we would get version 37.20. The version 37.20 update would release on September 10th, and it would give us like one thing to talk about. We have a new unnamed location west of Demon's Debris. This is Hive Hideout, a cool tunnel location with a good amount of loot that actually handles the Bug Queen pretty well. This cool cave location houses the Bug Queen, while there's tons of tunnels around it for you to loot up. The only problem is that this queen replaces the one from Ranger's Ruin, which can drop a sweeper shotgun. So nobody landed here. And that is literally everything added to Battle Royale with the version 37.20 update. But we aren't done yet, because just 2 days later, we would get something big that would completely change the course of this entire season. On September 12th, we would get the Great Unvault, which would change the way looting works to make legendary loot feel more rare, buff the Hyperburst pistol, remove the Ballsack shotgun and Deadeye DMR, and in their place, we would get 3 new weapons. Firstly, we got the MK7 and Hollow Twister assault rifle. And while this should give people PTSD from the fear of getting beamed with the Foundation's mythic MK, after all the nerfs this item got, it was pretty funny to see it come back and just be completely useless. Like, the recoil on this gun is way too much, and if you can deal with it, you can hit insane damage. But I can't deal with the recoil, so most of the time I'm picking up the Hollow Twister, which I've already kinda given my thoughts on during the Weekends of Champion event. See, I told you I would talk about it later. It's only been like 2 minutes. And a lot of people were mad about this because this makes the meta unbalanced, with red dots and non-red dots being in the same loot pool. And yeah, red dots are always going to be better than bloom weapons. This was another thing Chapter 5 did right. But I'm going to play devil's advocate and say I do like that Epic actually gave people a reason to take bloom assault rifles. Because the OXR rifle can be found in Mythic, and the Fury can also be found as the Flight Hacks exotic, otherwise known as the Gayfer, and most of the time I would take these weapons over red dot weapons. Also, the way that looting was reworked made it so that rare loot felt rare. I would find myself taking the Fury or OXR rifle if I couldn't find a Hollow Twister of the same rarity. Not to mention that these assault rifles feel vastly different. And of course by that I mean I am never taking the MK. But as much as people complained about red dots being in the loot pool, it really wasn't dominating that much. I could still use a Fury or OXR rifle and not get completely obliterated, like something like Chapter 3 with the Ranger versus the MK. And also, I only found a legendary Hollow Twister one time, and that made it feel incredibly special to get after the changes. So the changes they made to looting really did make looting feel fresh. I love the changes they did. The Frenzy Auto Shotgun replaced the Twinfire Auto Shotgun. And once again, this weapon should bring back PTSD of Chapter 5, but they added the Gatekeeper to reload. Anything is possible with with Chapter 5 shotguns. My point is, they nerfed this weapon to the ground, to the point where yeah, it's still an improvement over the ballsack shotgun, but most of the time you're still not taking this over a Wrecker revolver. And these changes were much needed to Battle Royale. I do think they picked the best weapons they could have. The red dot assault rifles really aren't that bad, and the frenzy auto is washed, let's be honest. And that was literally everything added this update. I mean, there was the Marvel Blitz stuff, but that's Blitz. We're not talking about that. But before the next update, I think I should have mentioned something. We were working together as a community to summon each of the Power Rangers, which would carry over into our next update, version 37.30. On September 18th, we would get the version 37.30 update, and would you believe it, there's actual content to talk about. Firstly, the Megazord is unlocked by gaining 16 levels. Man, this is lame. Remember back when you had to do challenges to get the skins? I don't feel like I'm working towards getting the skin anymore. I feel like I'm just playing a game, and then eventually I'll get the Megazord. And as for the skin itself, it's a really good version of Megazord, and they got everything right. I'm not a big Power Rangers fan, but like, come on. It's the Megazord. How can I not love it? But let's move on to gameplay additions. We got the addition of the Blade Blaster this update, and I hate it. The Blade Blaster would be dropped when hiring a Power Ranger NPC, or it's found in bunkers. And this thing made fights in Zero Build so annoying, because any attempts of hiding behind cover would just end up in somebody spamming the Blade Blaster at you. And it doesn't take any charging up like the Bug Blaster does, you just shoot, and the player with cover has to move. Also, I don't have any footage of this, but somebody used balloons and hit people with the Blade Blaster from the sky. I don't have any footage of it, it was just really annoying and I thought I should mention it. But a few hours later, the community quests were finally done, and all the Rangers were on the map, meaning we could summon our weapon to finally finish off these bugs for good. The Megazord. The Megazord would be summoned onto the island on September 18th, and it's just Godzilla, but with more aura. Being a giant robot shooting missiles and stomping on enemies, all while the Power Rangers theme is playing, is objectively really cool. Your goal as the Megazord is to take down a giant bug queen, and doing so will give you some of your health back, while the other players are trying to defeat you. Wait, why are the other players trying to stop Megazord? Lore-wise, this makes no sense, but whatever. Meteors will fall from the sky to give players loot to help defeat Megazord, and by dealing enough damage, you get the extended magazine boon from earlier. But the person who does the most damage to Megazord gets the Megazord medallion. Wait, I thought we were done with medallions this season. But that doesn't matter anyway, because after all the insanely broken medallions this season, the Megazord medallion just isn't good. The medallion barely gives you recon over time. At the rate you get recon, it's so slow that you can barely rely on recon during a fight. Most of the time, you'll never get recon scans when you want, and you'll only get it when walking through a field. And several times, I would hold on to a flare gun because I just forgot I had the Megazord medallion. The Megazord transformation is incredibly cool, but I would have just preferred if this was an LTM, because the Megazord, just like every other transformation, can completely ruin the pace of a match, to the point where the match either turns into go fight the Megazord where you'll probably die, or hide for 5 minutes. It just makes the pace of the match feel so much more weird with the Megazord in it. But as a transformation ability, Megazord is insanely cool. But we aren't done with the Power Rangers yet, because we still have Lord Zed. He would take over the island to make the storms more intense. Now with Lord Zed making the storm close faster, it made me wonder why the storm wasn't always like this. Because the first time since Chapter 4 Season 2, the storm actually felt like an active threat. Most of the time, you never have to worry about the storm. Just think about when the last time you died to storm in Battle Royale was. Well, for this event, you actually had to worry about the storm, making the game's pace feel so much better. This should have just always been how the storm worked. Like, is that just me? But this isn't the only thing Lord Zed did, because for 1 hour on September 20th, all weapons would be replaced with the Blade Blaster. But I didn't get any footage of this because this event sucked. For what the event was, it was a neat 1 hour event. But the problem is, I don't like the Blade Blaster, so making the only weapon the Blade Blaster means I'm not gonna like this hour. And I'm sure someone out there loves the Blade Blaster, and probably found this to be the most enjoyable moment of the entire season. And I question that person's sanity. Also, there were several ways to get normal weapons, so this whole event was just weird. You know, I'm just gonna move on. Now we are finally moving away from Power Rangers to talk about the other stuff this update. Like Delulu. Finally, after all these years of clickbait thumbnails, we got proximity chat in Fortnite. And it was so much fun.
I tried to get it.
What are we working? Is it like a 9 to 5?
I don't know anymore.
We don't use alerts in this game!
Oh.
With the bot problem Fortnite's been facing, especially in Chapter 6, this has been one of the first times Fortnite has felt truly alive in years. And being able to talk to other players led to some of the funniest moments I have ever had in Fortnite. Now, as great as Delulu is, it is not without flaws. Firstly, killing people in Delulu is so shamed upon, and when you do kill someone, 15 other people will start shooting at you, which leads to pretty much every endgame turning into a 40-player heal-off. I wish there was a bigger incentive to actually kill people in Delulu. Maybe more health or better loot. Also, the people who play Delulu without a mic and just kill everyone, you suck. Like, just go play Battle Royale. Why are you bothering playing Delulu? Like, the entire point of Delulu is that it's proximity chat. If you're not gonna use proximity chat and just kill people, that's just Battle Royale. Go play Battle Royale. Or they could go play the Daft Punk experience, which also released this update. Now, I do have to give a flashing lights warning. If you cannot handle flashing lights, please skip to this time zam. I don't want any people having Death by Fortnite event on their tombstone. Anyways, the Daft Punk experience starts off with an insane opening. Like, seriously, this looks insane. But then after that, you go into a Daft Punk UEFN map, and this is just okay. Like, the stuff in this map is fun. I love the room where you can make music, but there's no reason to go back and replay this, which would be fine if this was like an hour-long event, but this is still up as I'm recording this. This probably would have been a much better event if they gave it an ending with the same level of quality as the intro. But hey, if you're still one of the like 1,000 players on the Daft Punk experience, I'm sorry that I think your favorite mode is mid. But hey, at least you're still better than Lord Zed Power Hour fans. And finally, for version 37.30, we have Fortnite's birthday event. Also, hi to the people who skipped through the Daft Punk experience. I'm glad you didn't have a seizure, unlike some people. But now that you're back, let's go through Fortnite's birthday event, which started on September 26th. And after last year's birthday event being pretty decent with the funny birthday balloon medallion, I had hoped we would get another funny birthday medallion this year. And I mean, we kinda got it. The 8th birthday medallion will give players a chance to drop birthday presents once killed. The only problem? This medallion is Blitz exclusive. So you may be wondering, well, what did Battle Royale get? Balloons and birthday presents have been unvaulted for Fortnite's birthday event. This is boring. If you're gonna do the same thing every year, can you at least make it something interesting every year? Like, imagine if we got an LTM where every day the loot pool would change to be the loot pool of a different chapter. One day you have basic chapter 1 assault rifles, pump shotgun, and then the next day you have the Havoc pump and kinetic blade. This would make the event feel more like a celebration of Fortnite's past, rather than an obligation. You can even look at the rewards this year, which were the same as last year's, which were the same as last year's, which were the same as last year. Like, why do these rewards feel so soulless? Like, why can't the rewards be something like a loading screen with all the storyline characters celebrating Fortnite's birthday? Or something else that just feels special to this chapter, or this year of Fortnite, that I can look back on and think of all the good memories I had this chapter. It's just boring having the same birthday event over and over and over again. And I bet I'm probably the person who has talked the longest about this year's birthday event. So I'm just gonna move on. And that concludes version 37.30. Overall, I didn't really like this update. I mainly wasn't a fan of the Power Rangers stuff. The things added just felt eh, and the main collab of this season to only be getting its items now is weird. But this isn't even the tip of the iceberg for weird things that happened this season, which brings me to version 37.40. On October 2nd, we would get the version 37.40 update, which removed the entire season. Now at first, most people were confused by this, but if you paid attention to what I said earlier, you would know the Megazord was here to finish off the bugs. But if you paid attention to the lore, not even like doing story quests, no, but by talking to this guy, you would get the information that the bugs left because something bigger was coming. I wonder who that could be. But with the bug's disappearance, we also saw the removal of pretty much everything this season. I'm not joking, pretty much every new feature added this season was gone. But would you believe me if I said this was a good thing? I've got to be honest here, this game felt so much better without the bugs. These things were so annoying, and honestly, I'm happy to see them go. OXR ranks have also been removed, meaning the bunkers now just open whenever, and drop mythic weapons. I'm pretty sure this was a bug because they fixed it next update, so we're just going to ignore this. Alongside the removal of the bugs, the map reflected these changes by changing pretty much every location this season. Ranger's Ruin, Swarmy Stash, and Dystopia City have all been restored following the bugs leaving, now becoming Ranger's Rest, Harmony Hills, and Utopia City. Again. And I love these changes. They make the map feel more alive than it did before, when half the locations were just destroyed. Along with that, these locations become much better landing spots. Now that these locations aren't destroyed, they feel more like actual Fortnite locations instead of just a mess. But 2 locations have been left out of this because they got complete overhauls. That is the Hive and Demon's Debris. The Hive has been completely removed and replaced by Bugswater Beach. Instead of a huge bug war zone, it is now a tourist attraction, and that is really funny. With the Megazord and the final Bug Queen on display, I just find this really silly. And as for the location itself, they did it. Remember earlier when I said the Hive was literally nothing? Well, Bugswater Beach is something. It's an actual Fortnite location that's fun to land at and has actual depth and buildings, and it looks really nice, instead of it just being...
Yeah.
a mess. And finally, Night Shift Forest lives on in Demon's Debris, and now it becomes Dreamy Domain, a purple forest paying tribute to the location from Season 1. I love seeing the purple forest biome come back after being removed at the start of the chapter. It feels like we've come full circle. And as for the location itself, I mean, it's alright. My main issue is that I wish they put something in the middle so that it wasn't just open. But other than that, this location has completely redeemed itself. From being one of the worst locations of all time to a really solid and beautiful looking location. I also wanted to point out this bird location because at the start of the season, the bugs took the logo and moved it. But instead of moving the logo back to the building, they moved the building back to the logo. It's little map changes like this that I love in Fortnite because this is really silly. I love this. And with this single update, they took the map from being up there with Chapter 3 for one of the worst end of chapter maps, with the whole map just feeling like a mess and none of these locations standing out, and then they took it and made it one of the best maps with some of the best looking locations of all time. This map is just so much better. Oh my gosh. All they need to do now is just remove the Star Wars locations, and this map might be up there with Chapter 5 for the best end of chapter map. But moving on from the map, we still have more this update, because with this update, Huntrix from K-pop Demon Hunters would come to the island, for a storyline reason that definitely exists. But with their arrival, we would get the Demon Rush LTM. Demon Rush is a new take on Horde Rush from the previous chapters, but now with new bosses, ARs, an endless mode, and K-pop Demon Hunters. You can tell the K-pop Demon Hunters items were made for this mode because they feel great to use against the demons. Along with that, you can now use monster parts and vending machines to buy better loot. And they brought back augments for this mode. So objectively, I've gotta say this mode is great. But that's not all for the K-pop Demon Hunters collab, because we also got items in Battle Royale. Firstly, we have the Derpy Teleport Mask, which works like the Void Oni Mask from Season 1. However, now you have 3 uses that recharge over time, and for some reason, they gave it durability. The Shockwave Hammer functions similarly to the Derpy Teleport Mask, in which it has 3 uses that recharge over time. But the difference is the Shockwave Hammer doesn't have durability. So why would you take the mask over the shockwave hammer? You can't have an item with durability in the same loophole as an item without durability, because why should I take the teleport mask over the shockwave hammer? Next up is Zoe's bubble shield, which functions just like a normal shield bubble junior, except now this one heals you for 5 shields a second and plays golden. It's just a better shield bubble. I love it. What more do you want me to say? Then we have Mira's ramen. This item kinda works like a shield potion, giving you 50 health or shield insanely fast and giving you the pepper effect. Since this item has a stack size of 3, yeah, this is a pretty solid healing item. You're gonna find yourself taking this a lot for like the week it was in the game. And finally, we have Rumi's sword. And I don't know how to feel about this one. There's not much wrong with the item itself. It's a pretty balanced melee item. The problem comes from the fact that whenever Fortnite players get a melee item, they spam it like they're auditioning to be in K-pop Demon Hunters 2, and it gets so annoying. Most of the time you can deal with it, but if you make one mistake, it's over in the little round 1. Which wouldn't be a problem except for the fact that half the lobby was using this thing. Yeah, I don't really like melee items. Overall, the K-pop Demon Hunters collab is really good. You could tell Epic put a lot of time and care into this, and for some reason, people were complaining that Epic rushed this collab without a lot of care. And you guys do realize you got 3 skins, 4 items taking over all modes, even the launch screen, and K-pop Demon Hunters took over the main Fortnitemares LTM. And while there was another highly requested collab that only got kicks and a car decal, no, K-pop Demon Hunters is the rushed collab. And on the topic of neglect, OG Season 6 released this update. And if you had no clue about this, I wouldn't blame you, since Epic released this with no promotion, no key art, no trailer, and we didn't even get a lobby background. But I could probably just do a separate video on OG, and I said I would only brush up on modes, so I'll just leave my thoughts at that. I guess you'll just have to subscribe to see an OG video. Anyway, and that was, surprisingly, everything added in version 37.40. With everything added at the start, you think this update would be bigger, but no, that's pretty much it. But now that this version comes to an end, there's something spooky in the air. Actually, skip the cheesy transition. It's Fortnitemares. It's Fortnitemares. Just cut to Fortnitemares. Fortnitemares 2025 released on October 10th, and looking at the trailer, it felt like a trailer for Smash Ultimate because they got everyone. They got original skins, collab skins, spooky skins. I'm imagining Fortnite sent out a survey to see which collab skins they should do this year, and accidentally everyone clicked all of the above. Like, why is Doja Cat here? Oh wait, she's a little freaky, that makes sense actually. And onto the gameplay itself, we have 5 new locations. Well, new in quotation marks, because Foxy Floodgate, Shiny Shafts, and Shining Span got covered in vines to become Gordy Gate, Viney Shafts, and Pumpkin Pass. Which is cool, I like seeing these locations become completely taken over by Fortnitemares. Plus, it's not like anyone was dropping Shiny Shafts before this update. But we do still have 2 actually new locations to talk about. Well, new in quotation marks, because one of them is just Freaky Fields again. Creepy Camps is Jason Voorhees' location, and while this is a cool lodge location that reminds me of Weeping Woods, I swear this place has no loot, because I would go through tons of buildings and find not a single chest. Thank goodness for the pumpkin chest and the capture point here for being like the only loot. But this place also replaced the resistance base, so it's still an upgrade from before. And now for the first time since chapter 3, a location returns from a previous chapter. That being Freaky Fields returning from chapter 5. Now I'm not gonna lie, I think it's really funny to see the meme of Freaky Fields making a comeback in chapter 6. And it is just as good as I remember it. I swear, people are sleeping on Freaky Fields because this place is great, and just like Creepy Camps, it replaced Outpost Enclave, so it is easily an upgrade over what we had before. We also have some locations being taken over by vines with new pumpkin chests, which I'm not actually talking about. I just wanted to use them as an excuse to transition into the weapons. Firstly, for some reason, all the K-pop Demon Hunters items have been removed. I just think it's kind of lame to have all these items from K-pop Demon Hunters just to take them out a week later. Also, the bunkers now give exotics again instead of mythics. I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, onto the new stuff. The Witch's Broom returns for Fortnitemares, but now with durability. Who was begging for the Witch Broom to have durability? Because the Witch Broom never needed durability. It was already a balanced item before Chapter 6. So adding durability to the broom just makes it worse. And they also added durability to the chainsaw. And just like the Witch's Broom, this item never needed durability. And if Epic really wanted to nerf the chainsaw, then just nerf the chainsaw. Aside from durability, the chainsaw is still just as fun and slightly annoying as it was last year. There was no reason to give it durability. But thankfully, they didn't give the pumpkin launcher durability. Just don't question how durability on that would even work. Epic would find a way. However, they did slightly adjust the pumpkin launcher to have a new model and firing effect. Along with that, just like last year, you can get a gold one from the Ultimate Carver boss. Also, you can rocket ride now. I keep flip-flopping on whether or not I like the wood stake shotgun. Sometimes I can clutch up with it, while other times I cannot hit a shot. I guess I would say I like it because it reminds me of my beloved Chapter 3 heavy shotgun, but then I don't hit a single shot and lose the fight, and I hate it. And we also have a new mythic version of the wood stake, being the high stake shotgun from the Jason Voorhees boss. And yeah, it's just the wood stake shotgun, but better. Also, for some reason, the gold pump is back once again, but I literally never found it, so I don't know if it was in or not. So I'm just gonna mention it. If it is, if it wasn't, oh well, whatever. But of course, what is Fortnitemares without some new items? Starting off with Doja Cat's Thorn Ripper, which is pretty much just the Chains of Hades. And I found it so funny when people would take this because it's Doja Cat's mythic without realizing the melee attack sucks. Even with the buff it got later into Fortnitemares, it still sucked. Do not take the Chains of Hades. And then next up are Scooby Snacks, which worked kind of similar to the Slapberry Fizz, but without the Flowberry effect, and with 250 health instead of 300. Once you use Scooby Snacks, you get the slap effect, and once running, you hear this sound ripped directly from the show. However, you never really get enough slap because you lose slap in like 5 seconds after eating the Scooby Snacks. But they're still good heals, so I'm not complaining too much. And finally, we have the Last Call, obtained from phone booths around the map, and while this thing isn't too strong on its own, the melee attack does solid damage and you get recon, this item can be really annoying to go up against, because everyone and their grandma was using the Last Call. And the problem with the Last Call is that if you miss one shot on Ghostface, it's over. And while you could try to run away, this item gives you increased movement speed and makes it incredibly hard to run away, especially if the Ghostface user is already carrying something like Shockwaves or Scooby Snacks. This is a big problem when the only way to counter a melee item like this is to create distance. Or if you remember really early into this video, the Stinger SMG and Frenzy Auto Shotgun are really good counters to this item. The weird thing is that almost every melee item this season gives you increased speed, and I just think that's stupid. I'm starting to get really tired of these stupid crutch items every season, but I don't want to rant about that. If you want to see a good video about it, then watch this video by Jackass on items I don't like and I don't want to talk about anymore. The Last Call is stupid if you couldn't tell. I don't like it. And surprisingly, that is everything added in Fortnitemares this year. With all the new collabs we got this year, you would expect a lot more than 3 items to be added to Battle Royale. And it's not like there isn't potential for these items. Imagine a reskin Grapple Glove, but it's the grab pack from Poppy Playtime. Or maybe an item like the Guided Missile, but with the hand from Wednesday. I don't know, this is just me spitballing while I'm waiting for my Spanish class to start, okay? These IPs have potential for items in-game, and more potential than some franchises that got items in the game. So it's sad to see them just be shop skins, and that's literally it. But even regardless of that, this is still easily the best Fortnitemares event we have gotten. But I can't help but wish we got more content that isn't just skins. Because looking at what we got, you can tell they put a lot more focus on getting collabs, rather than the collabs having an impact on gameplay. This is still the best Fortnitemares event, but with all the collabs we got in the item shop, it's hard not to wish we got a little bit more added to Battle Royale. And now we're starting to near the end of Shock and Awesome, and things are starting to act a bit strange, because Bart's treehouse would come to the island with a purple glow, and 2 aliens would be watching us through the battle bus. And this would lead to us leading the island in the end of Season 4 mini-event, Welcome Our Alien Overlords. Hope and Jonesy use the rift device to stop the dark presence from entering the island before King and Kodos decide to open the portal anyway, allowing the dark presence to enter the island. And then we watch an episode of The Simpsons. Like, this is literally just an episode of The Simpsons. Okay, let's be fair. This was marketed as a mini event, and all the leakers were telling us that this would be a big event, and it turns out they just got this event confused for 0 Hour. And all things considered, this is a pretty good episode of The Simpsons. I'm more of a Family Guy myself, but this Simpsons episode was still good. And overall, if we kept our expectations at the level Epic told us to keep them at, this mini event was pretty neat. But now that this event was over, we would go into downtime for the Simpsons season, marking the end of Fortnite Chapter 6 Season 4. Fortnite Chapter 6 Season 4 was weird. Every day felt like a flip-flop from the last day. You had no clue what to expect. A lot of mistakes were made during this season, but this showed just how fast Fortnite can adjust the game based on feedback, because they were making changes, and a lot of them paid off. If I were to rank this season, I would give it an A tier. But this season is so hard to rank, because we kept going from It's So Over, but near the end of the season, this became one of the most fun seasons of all time. I think Epic has learned a lot from this season, and hopefully they can take this knowledge and use it to make Chapter 7 even better. But as for now, it's time to sit back, relax, and wait to arrive at our next destination.